Thanks to social media, there's a new Marshall in town for the Rider men's basketball team. Back in August, head coach Kevin Baggett announced the addition of former NBA player Donyell Marshall as the assistant to his coaching staff. How a little tweet went a long way to change the landscape of the Rider Bronx upcoming season. The day was June 5th. At the time, retired point guard Jason Kidd had wanted to go into coaching after playing in the NBA for 19 seasons. Knowing this, Baggett asked his associate head coach Mike Witcoskie to take advantage of social media's power and tweet at Jason Kidd.
Coach Baggett told me to put out on Twitter that we were looking for a coach if Jason Kidd was interested, because he had said something to the media about wanting to coach. And obviously, we had no idea he was going to end up, as a head coach of the Nets. But, it was basically, we just put it out there that, hey, if we get a guy with that kind of experience, we definitely take him.
No Kidd, no problem. The Bronx were able to land another former NBA player, Donyell Marshall. Marshall had reached out to the coaching staff after the tweet. He knew the school because Rider had tried recruiting his son Marquise a couple years back.
The one thing that Donyell was very genuine when he came here, and in the whole recruiting process, he was good to us, and we took a liking to him. And it's just funny, you never know where roads are going to meet, and so we had a good time getting to know one another then. And obviously, he knew Mike, my assistant, a little better, and so it was just a good fit in the end. And we sat down on 2 different occasions and talked about what it is I was looking for, and I finally decided that he was the guy that I wanted to hire.
The 1994 Big East Player of the Year and first-team All-American at UConn, Marshall was a forward for 8 NBA teams in 15 seasons. Now that he wants to be a coach, he's got a new understanding and respect for what coaching is all about.
As a player, you pretty much just come to the games, you get the scouting report, and you do it. As a coach, you got to do all the behind-the-scenes stuff. Even as a player, you know what a coach does, but you don't appreciate it as much. Now that you're over in this part, you're like, okay, I appreciate everything that coach has done, to help me get in the right situation, to be at the right spot at the right time, to know the plays and stuff. So, it definitely, once you're over here, it gives you a lot more appreciation as a player.
After the interviews, Baggett chose Marshall as his new coach not only because of his extensive playing career, but because he felt that Marshall had the desire to work hard at the profession.
There's a couple of things. One, his experience, of having played, at the highest level, and his passion on wanting to be at this level and be a college coach and someday be a head coach. And again, I thought it was a right fit. I thought this would be a good step for him to learn and get good experience. So, eventually he'll go on and to do better things as an assistant or maybe even as a head coach as time progresses.
After losing assistant coaches Lou Rowe and Mike Cotton following last season, Baggett admits that he waited a really long time to make a hire. He just wasn't sure who he wanted to add as assistants to his staff after contacting several potential candidates. It took him a few months, but he finally filled both coaching vacancies.
I had been discussing, the opportunity here for the position with a couple other guys. I really took my time from May, and I ended up hiring in September, really in August, and then he started in September. But I just wanted to take my time, talk to a lot of people, and figure out who was going to be a good fit for our program and our staff.
Now that he's at Rider, he realizes there's an awful lot to learn this year in order to progress as a coach. Though Marshall has a lot of basketball experience, there's always something new to learn in this profession.
I got to continue to get better every day. Just like we demand these players to get better every day in order to win, I have to get better as a coach. I have to see what Coach Baggett does, how he approaches kids, how he doesn't approach kids, how he calls plays, how he calls timeout, how he manages his team, how he gets along with the assistant coaches. Those are all the things that I have to learn. I think I'm going forward with that. Again, I'm still young as a coach, and it's not going to happen overnight. But for me, just as much demanding as I do on these kids, I have to demand of myself to get better as an assistant in order to hopefully one day become the head man in charge.
Playing from 1994 to 2009, Marshall's career transpired throughout the childhood of all of these Rider basketball players. It's players like him who probably sparked their interest in playing the sport at a high level.
Yeah, and I think you get by that after a while, after the first week of having him on your program and then on your staff, and then the reality sets in that he's got to help us, he's got to coach those guys, he's got to yell at them, he's got to discipline them. So the most important thing is looking at him as a person, and so his values, his views on things, and our guys appreciate that. Yet he does a good job in commanding their respect and teaching those guys out on the court, exactly what it is they need to do to help us to win.
One player excited about the hire was senior forward Danny Stewart. Since Marshall was a forward as well, he tries to gain any advice possible.
Since he played sort of the same position, he has a lot of tips and pointers and has a lot of information for me in order to make the game easier for me and make myself better. Having an NBA guy on your staff is something you always want because he's played in the league, obviously, so he has a lot of knowledge, and he's able to share that knowledge with all of us.
Marshall had the privilege of being drafted out of college as a junior, but at the same time, he realizes that the chances of playing in the NBA are very slim. Though one Rider alum, Jason Thompson, was drafted, there have been several other Rider basketball players who have found successful professional careers overseas. Not only do these former Rider basketball players have careers now, but they also have the education to back them up.
I try to preach to get your degree. That's the most important thing. And even if you look at myself, who played 15 years in the NBA, who made a lot of money, I had to go back and get my degree in order to even coach. So to me, that's the most important thing. If you get a chance to play professionally, then that's an extra added bonus, whether it's across seas or whether it's in the NBA. People got to realize you can go to Europe now and make a lot of money. And if you're a person who can save, you play a long time and you save your money, you can live a nice, healthy, retired life.
Marshall was a member of 8 different teams throughout his NBA career. As a result, he played under many different coaches in many different systems. Because of that, he can bring a lot of ideas to the table when it comes to the game of basketball.
The great thing is, maybe not for him, but for us, he played on a multitude of teams. So he's seen it done a lot of different ways, good, bad, and ugly probably, as most of us all have. But he can kind of bring that experience into, hey, here's what's worked, here's what I've seen that hasn't worked. And that's essentially what coaching is.
I would say that I've been able to take a lot of different small things from each coach because, it could become a hassle every year in and year out, trying to learn a different philosophy, learn different schemes, learn different plays, learn different terminology. That can become a hassle, but the thing that I've been able to do is take a little bit from each coach that I've had.
Marshall has done a good job interacting with the players, but one surprise of having Marshall on the staff is recruiting.
We're involved with some kids in Texas. He's from Ohio, but he has some connections in Texas, so we've already been out there. We've got a kid coming in soon on a visit from Texas. Actually 2 kids. He's done a good job relating to our players. I want him to coach, and he's been pretty vocal in helping our post guys and all the guys out on the court, and he's making these guys accountable, which is what I want. And, again, not only just his experience, just his basketball knowledge has been a great help for me and our staff.
So far, Marshall has enjoyed his time here at Rider, and the players who he's worked with most, the big guys in the low post.
It's been great. This is a good group of kids. Obviously, I haven't been here in the past to know a lot of the past history, but these kids are very good. They've really accepted me. I'm probably close with Junior, Daniel, Khalil, Brandon, Sean. Those guys are the ones that I'm probably with hands-on all the time, so a little closer to those guys. I think it's a good group of guys. I think we're going to surprise a lot of people.
At the end of the day, it all goes back to how much it helps the Rider basketball program. With Jason Thompson drafted to the NBA in 2008, and now that former pro Donyell Marshall is an assistant coach, that's just another resume builder for athletics.
It always helps. I mean, obviously, with having Jason in the NBA helps, and then having a guy like Donyell on the staff helps. But at the end of the day, you got to be able to coach and help us win games. He's a guy that is very hungry to be a head coach at some point. And I don't know how long I'll have him. I don't know how long I'll have most of my guys on my staff. I lost 2 this year, who ended up going back to jobs back in their home state. So, in college basketball, nothing's forever. So. So you just deal with it and you move on and you enjoy having them when you have them.
Of course, because he's played on some great NBA teams with some great players, the team enjoys picking his brain about his experience.
Oh yeah, we pepper him with those questions all the time, and that's part of the joy of it. You get a little bit of that insider access.
Now, here are some questions that I had fun asking Donyell Marshall about his basketball career.
I'm the kind of coach that, we'll talk about it. If they mention it to me, we'll kind of mess around, but it's their time now. I have my time. My time is to pass the knowledge down. We'll come out and do some shooting games once in a while, but my time is up. I think with Danny, I see how hard he works. It reminds me of a Chris Wright who played at Dayton a couple years ago, who got a little bit of time in the NBA. I look at Anthony, kind of reminds me of a Larry Hughes, the way he plays defense and the way he can shoot and score. Guys like that. Jimmy probably reminds me of a Daniel Gibson type player. So, these guys kind of remind you of certain players. Not on that level yet, but, I definitely see that style of play in those guys. Well, I had a blast in all of them. You got to understand, growing up a kid in the projects and being able to live my dream, I had a blast in all of them. I felt I finally learned how to play the game of NBA basketball in Utah. When I got to Cleveland, we made it to the championship. We didn't win, but that experience alone, and growing up in Reading, 45 minutes out of Philadelphia, and playing for my hometown team, it's always a blessing. So, I can say some teams that I did have better time with, but actually all of them were great. I would say Jerry Sloan. He was a guy who was a no-nonsense coach. He was a guy who would say the same thing to the superstar as he would to the guy who was the 15th man on the team. And to me, that was what was so great about him. He didn't give the superstar any more favors or any more than what he would do to the last man on the bench. Playing my position, I had to guard a lot of different ones. I can't really say it's one. I've had to guard Kevin Garnett. I've had to guard Rasheed Wallace. I've had to guard Shaquille O'Neal. I had to guard Yao Ming. I've had to guard Michael Jordan a couple times. I can't say any one. Really probably can't say. Probably a woman's chest. He was great. We're still friends to this day. We talk every so often. He's doing great. My kids love him. Our families was pretty close, and it was great being out there. He made the game a lot easier for me, especially at that point in my career when I was older. So being able to play with somebody is that talent. I play with a couple guys who've been in the Hall of Fame, but when my kids are older, my grandkids, and they sit up here and see this man, I can say I played with him. Obviously, getting drafted will always be number one, but making it to the NBA championship. I would like to have won it, but making it and playing in the NBA championship. Of course, I was against the team I grew up playing against. It's on YouTube, so you can go watch it anytime. So, but I definitely remember that day. It was on my wife's birthday as well, so it's a day that I'll always remember.
The player who he's tied with for that record, Lakers great Kobe Bryant. From Alumni Gym, this is Stephen Eggert, Rider University Network.